Greetings from the Holy Land, 23rd of Tevet, winding down, 5778. Sometimes, you prepare, I think there's a joke in Yiddish, sounds better probably in Yiddish, if I spoke it I would tell it, but a man plans and God laughs. Anyways, today we were supposed to have the third part of our series on Adam and Eve, Hanukkah, Christianity, and the days of the Shovavim, but Hashem, God has other plans for us. And last night when I went to the evening prayers at 8:30 in our settlement in Elon Moreh, a person announced after the prayers that somebody from a neighboring settlement called Chabad Gilad, the Gilad farm, was injured in an attack, a terrorist attack, Arab attack on Jews, and we said a chapter of Psalms for the person's recovery. Unfortunately, when I got back home about an hour later, my wife told me that the rabbi that was hit, shot at, passed away. I guess probably pretty much right on the spot. So sometimes you just take whatever you prepared and you just put it to the side, throw it to the side, because right now, this is where we're at, and this is something that we must speak about. This is something that this is on my mind, it's on my heart. On the way here, hitching from Elon Moreh to the Holy Apple, put down a few ideas, and today the title of the class is Another Jew Murdered in the Shomron. So first, a little bit background. Who are we talking about? Last night, a rabbi, an unbelievable person, unbelievable holy man, pure soul, beautiful personality, Rabbi Raz, short for Raziel, which ironically is the name of an angel, and that's really who he was, an angel. And he was coming home last night, and maybe 2 minutes driving time from the turnoff to his home in Chabad Gilad. I have a married daughter, and her family lives there. My son used to live there. He built a house there, and then it was torn down by the so-called Jewish government of Israel. All the money that he had spent, his own money, down the tubes. So he's about 2 minutes away from his house, and a car comes by, passes Rabbi Raz's car, opens fire. Inside the car, in the passenger seat, there was a groom that was married 2 weeks ago. The groom was not touched. Amazing, miraculous. But Rabbi Raz was murdered. And a few things about Rabbi Raz. Number one of my daughters, daughter that lives in Chabad Gilad, where Rabbi Raz lives, she has 3 children, 3 of my grandchildren, all boys. The first boy was born about 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And then a couple years went by and they weren't able to have kids. And thank God about a half a year ago, they had twins. All three grandchildren of mine, the rabbi that performed the circumcision was Rabbi Raz. Not only was he a rabbi, he was also a medical person. He was a volunteer for many years. I think about 10 years he volunteered for various ambulances, ambulance companies, and paramedic kind of work. So he was a rare, rabbi also, but paramedic person. So we had the honor to have him at 3 of our circumcisions. And we know in Judaism that who performs the circumcision has a big influence on a person's life, on the baby's life. So we merited to have such a special soul, special person. Another incident that I remember is, for about 2 years I gave a weekly class at Chavat Gilad settlement for young guys that are like 15, 16, 17, 18 approximately. Gave it once a week. And I remember during this period of time, the Shovavim, where we read the portions of the week from Shmot, Va'era, Exodus. We read 6 portions of the week. It's a very spiritual, very holy time of the year that we're able to fix any promiscuity that we had in the sexual realm. And I would see him every week at my class. I would see him. He would be with a prayer shawl and with the tefillin wrapped around his arms and his head. And I would wave to him, he would wave to me. And after the 6-week period was over that I saw him every week, he came up to me and he said, "Listen, I just wanted to tell you I never had the opportunity that during those 6 weeks, those special 6 weeks, I did not speak. I did not speak." There's different types of fasts in Judaism. The fast that most people are familiar with is when a person refrains from eating. However, there's in Judaism there's also a fast from speaking. It's called Tanit Dibur in Hebrew. So he says, I accepted upon myself for those weeks not to speak. The Arizal writes about this. If a person could do this for 40 days, tremendous atonement for a lot of mess-ups that we did. So he says, I wanted to just apologize that I would have been happy to come to your classes, but I had a certain amount of obligations of different learnings that I had to do. So, that shows a person that's thinking about not just looking in the mirror at himself, is concentrating on those around him. So he wanted to make sure that, God forbid, I didn't think twice about it, that, he didn't come to the class. But this is the type of guy we're talking about. The settlement of Chavat Gilad, for the years that it was established, when the head of security of Itamar was on that road where the settlement now is, and he was murdered. His name was Itai Zar. May Hashem avenge his blood. And he was blown away by Arabs on that road, and I merited to be there when they started to put up the new settlement, and the place right next to where he was murdered, right off the road. And thank God I was able to fight for that place when the army came to tear it down, and the police. God gave me the merit to stand up and fight for that area. The way the place was run, Chabad Gilad, it was kind of like a wild kind of place. It wasn't too serious when it came to prayers, wasn't too serious when it came to learning Torah. And in the last year, Rabbi Raz came to the rescue. People wanted him to be the rabbi of the settlement, and he really came to the rescue. Every so often, my family, we come to our daughter, our married daughter, and we spend the Shabbat with them at Chabad Gilad. And let me tell you, I noticed right away, without anybody, telling me anything, I noticed right away the tremendous change. The place went through a revolutionary change. Prayers were on time. There was no talking in the synagogue during prayers, and there were now classes during the week, and there were classes for children that he gave. A really amazing guy. Now, sometimes when you have, rough kind of people, rough and tough kind of guys, it's not easy to find a rabbi that's going to be on their wave. But this Rabbi Raz, he was one of these guys, one of these special souls, one in a million, that was on the wave of, of people of all ages there and all different types. So he was really, the force behind the tremendous change that took place, positive change that took place in Chabad Gilad. So that's a little bit tremendous. The song, Only the Good Die Young. He's 35 years old, 6 kids. Most of them are pretty young. I think the youngest is perhaps a month old. And he was one of these guys that are one in a million. And tell you the truth, from my heart, I really didn't want to come today to give this class. And it's just really hard. I've had friends, I've had acquaintances, I've had rabbis of mine murdered. And, you take a hit, and then you take another hit, and you take another hit. Sometimes you just like, I can't get myself up. I can't get myself up to give that class, just like, leave me alone. I want to be here, I'm going to stay in my house or stay in my yeshiva, close the door. I don't want to hear it. I can't get myself up there. But thank God, God gives us strength. And if you hear something, or if you experience something, God also gives us the strength and the courage and stamina to pass the test, no matter how difficult. So it's not easy. I have certain acquaintances or certain relatives that, don't contact me, don't talk, don't converse with me, don't respond. And let me tell you something. It's really a big, big chutzpah, because these people out there living in their glass homes, they didn't have, their rabbi blown away, and see a rabbi, all covered with blood, and see the orphans and the widows, and your friends blown away in front of your eyes. None of these people have seen it, and they have the gall to not want to contact an extremist like myself. Okay, let's talk about some very important points here. What's happening here is not new. What's happening here is not new at all. The Jewish people in the land of Israel, all over the place, not only in the settlements in Judea, Samaria, formerly Gaza, Sinai Desert, but we feel it here more. It's more prevalent here. And this is not new, that because of all kinds of political and wicked considerations, Jewish blood has become cheap in the land of Israel. A place, Israel, where many secular Zionists claimed and believed that an end would come to the demise of the Jewish people, the falling of the Jewish people, the attack on the Jewish people, anti-Semitism against the Jewish people here in the Holy Land. So this is what we're dealing with here. I want to give a few up-to-date examples of this hefkerut, of this allowing the Jewish people's blood to be spilled cheaply. I'll give some examples. Recently, now, on a major highway, the 60 highway that goes from Jerusalem through the Samaria and also through Judea, not too far from here, about 9 kilometers from Tapuach, a gigantic, and I ain't kidding you, a gigantic billboard. And on this billboard is a picture of the mosque in Jerusalem, what they call Al-Aqsa Mosque. And also you see an Arab with a kafia on his face, so you can only see the eyes, and he has there one of these slingshots with a rock. And another place in that billboard, you see the colors of the so-called PLO, the Arab flag, but instead of being in the form of a flag, the shape of a flag, it's in the shape of a knife. Yeah, it's in the shape of the knife. And on the bottom in Arabic, it says that Palestine, Jerusalem belongs to the Palestinian people forever. And by a group called, one word, Return to P. You know, like, try not to say that word, that false word. So you have an incitement against thousands of Jews, tens of thousands of Jews who live in these areas. Arabs go by, tens of thousands of people go by. It's a major highway. And they're encouraged to throw rocks and to stab and kill Jews. Can you believe this? This sign was up. I just found out, I'm not a big traveler, but I just found out about this last night. This sign was up for 1 week. Thousands of people, tens of thousands of Arabs, Jews going by, until, thank God, a group of Jewish activists came, ran up the ladder, and pulled it down. Can you imagine? When complaints were given to the army and to the police, you can imagine how fast they worked. A little joke there. Until activists had no choice and had to do it themselves. Because if you wait for the establishment, for the police and for the army, more and more incitement against the Jewish people by that sign. So this is Israel, baby. This is in Europe. This is in London. This is in Scotland. This is Israel. This is in Germany here. This is where God brought us back in order to put a stop to the desecration of God's name. And let me tell you, for those that are familiar, and those that are not, it's good to know. Some Jews, at midnight, close to it, they get down on the floor and they say various prayers and psalms about the destruction of the temples in Jerusalem every single night, except of course on holidays. And the first two chapters, one is talking about the destruction of the temple, and interesting enough, ironically, the second one talks about the murder of righteous people. And we know that it's not haphazard that those two are in back to back, because in fact the Talmud tells us there are two nuances of what the words are. One nuance is that the death, we're not even talking about murder, the death of a righteous person is equal to the destruction of the temple. If you remember, one of our rabbinical fasts is called the Fast of Gedalia, and that teaches us, even though we're accustomed that all fasts are connected to the destruction of the temple, we do have one that's connection to the fall of Gedalia in the time of the first temple, after the destruction of the first temple. So it's the destruction, the fall, the death of a righteous person is equal to the destruction of the temple. And there's one nuance that says it's greater than the destruction of the temple. Greater than the destruction of the temple. So we should be thinking, wow, so we have a sign in the middle of the land of Israel, in the heartland of Israel. This is where the Bible took place. Judea, Samaria, the Shomron. Right in the middle of the heartland. We have a sign up, gigantic billboard. We have up there inciting Arabs to perpetrate attacks against the Jews. And for a week it's able to sit up there. It's able to remain. And in the end, who takes it down? Activists. So we have a picture of the temple. Where the temple stands, we have a mosque on it. In that picture, inciting the Arabs to attack, to save Jerusalem. The point here is, so we have various levels. We have the destruction of the temple. We have the destruction of the righteous. And then more so, even on a higher pedestal, we have the desecration of God's name. That has to be in our focus at all times, 24/7. I'm sure that Rabbi Raz and the thousands of others who have been murdered by these Arab blanks, I'm sure they're in a good place in the true world, in the world, okay, in heaven, in the world to come. That I have no doubt. But what we cannot ignore is the tremendous desecration of Hashem's name that is taking place here. That a tremendous leader of the Jewish people, a rabbi of Israel, is mowed down, is gunned down 2 minutes before his house, in the middle, in the heart of the land of Israel. And they run, and the car speeds off into, right at that intersection. It's an intersection that has an entrance to the city of Shechem, what the nations called Nablus. That's where they escaped to. And it brings back memories of Shimon and Levi in the city of Shechem. What happened when they defiled, when the inhabitants of Shechem defiled a daughter of Jacob, a daughter of Israel, Dinah. That's number one. Jewish blood has become cheap in the Holy Land. A week ago, 6 days ago. There was a Jew that was traveling on one of the roads in Samaria, Shomron, and he sees a car with a yellow license plate, which means that that's Arabs who live in Judea and Samaria have a white and green license plate. Jews and or Arabs that live in what they call Israel proper, or not so proper, they have yellow license plates. So you have all the Arabs in Jerusalem are also with yellow plates. So you can't say, oh, if it's a yellow plate, then it has to be a Jew. It's not that way at all. Anyways, usually in our neighborhood, in our turf, when you see a yellow license plate, you know that it's a Jew. So there's a car that's parked off the road with its blinkers on, emergency lights going on and off, and then this Jewish fellow gets out of his car to try to see if they need some help, and there were about 4 Arabs there trying to play that they were like Jews, and thank God there was some mishap with their gun, and the guy, miraculously, his life was saved, if you could believe that. Right in this area where this attack happened. The Jew immediately called up for assistance from the army, and they told him that there's nothing they could do about it because the car had skipped and slipped out the back jack to the city of Shechem, and they're not allowed to go into the city of Shechem. Thank you, Oslo Accords of 1993, which you need like special permission to go in there. It's not ours anymore. Thank you very much. This Jew that was almost killed 6 days ago, he told the authorities the following, that if you don't do something quick, there's really going to be a tragedy here. Do you think anybody gives? Do you think they were saying, oh my God, we really have to do something here, let's beef up the security here? You know, there's so many thousands and thousands of people that are pushing the pencils in, in Tel Aviv and other places in the army. It's interesting how they don't have enough force to bring down here to protect Jews. People that do nothing all day. Not one, not hundreds, not thousands of them. So his request went on deaf ears. And we see 6 days later, boy, he wasn't joking. Waiting for the tragedy, waiting for the next tragedy. I'm going to read an article from today's Arutz Sheva. An amazing article. A member of the Knesset of the Jewish Home Party named Dov Kalmanovich, he himself was a victim of Arab terrorism. They threw a Molotov cocktail at his car many years ago.